In a quiet small town, a home invasion would lead to the shocking death of a beloved local. Milton Sawyer Jr., a man adored by those around him, was found dead under strange and troubling circumstances. At first, it seemed like a robbery gone wrong, but as the investigation progressed, a much darker truth began to unfold. What initially appeared to be an accident soon revealed itself as a meticulously planned crime, driven by a web of manipulation, deceit, and a chilling obsession. The more investigators uncovered, the clearer it became that this was no accidental act of violence. It was a calculated, diabolical scheme. This is the case of Milton Sawyer Jr., a series of shocking plot twists and disturbing revelations. Let's uncover the truth. Welcome to Slice of Darkness. This is your host, Alyssa, and today we're diving into a case that takes us to Elizabeth City, North Carolina, a place nicknamed the Harbor of Hospitality. It's a peaceful, small town located near the Pasquotank River, known for its historic beauty, the presence of a major Coast Guard base, and, for those in the know, its unique annual potato festival. This event celebrates the town's agricultural roots, featuring potato-based dishes, live entertainment, games, and a sense of community that draws both locals and visitors. It's one of those events that truly brings the town together. Elizabeth City is the kind of place where not much happens, so when the events of August 2, 2018 unfolded, they shook the entire town to its core. The story kicks off at 2 a.m. That night, Elizabeth City police were enjoying a quiet skeleton shift when a 911 call came in that would turn their night upside down. On the other end of the line was a man named Carl. He sounded rattled as he explained that his neighbor, Angel, had just shown up at his door in tears, blood dripping down her face, saying someone had broken into her home and attacked her and her husband, Milton. Carl told the dispatcher that Angel said the intruder had hit her with a firearm, tied her and Milton up with duct tape, and stolen cash and valuables before fleeing. Milton, she claimed, wasn't responding. She couldn't wake him up. When officers arrived at the scene, they found Angel outside, clearly shaken and injured. Her hands were bound with duct tape, and her face was streaked with blood. She said she'd managed to escape the intruder, but her husband was still inside. The house was dark, quiet, and eerily still as officers made their way inside. What they found wasn't pretty. The place had been completely ransacked, drawers pulled out, furniture overturned, like someone had been desperately searching for something. In the bathroom, they discovered Milton's lifeless body. His hands were bound, and he showed signs of asphyxiation. He hadn't survived the attack. Now, who was Milton Sawyer? To the people of Elizabeth City, Milton wasn't just some guy running an antique store. He was one of those larger-than-life figures everyone seemed to know and like. Milton grew up in a big family, with lots of siblings he was really close to. His first job was in computer science, but it wasn't long before his passion for collecting took over. Inspired by his dad, Milton decided to turn his hobby into a full-time gig. He opened the Treasure Hunter, where he bought and sold all kinds of antiques, gold, and collectibles. Some people might call it a pawn shop, but to Milton, it was his dream. But Milton wasn't just about his work. In 2011, he met Angel Kessinger at their kids' school. Both were divorced and raising kids on their own. Milton had 3 and Angel had 4. That shared experience brought them together, and their connection grew fast. By 2012, they were married. Angel even started helping Milton at the Treasure Hunter, and together they built what looked like a happy, blended family of 9. But appearances, as we all know, can be quite deceiving. After Milton's death, the police were quick to piece together what Angel said had happened. According to her, she and Milton were in bed watching TV when she got up to grab a snack. That's when she was confronted by a masked intruder who had snuck in through an unlocked back door. He demanded valuables, duct-taped her and Milton, and began tearing the house apart. She said he dragged her to look for jewelry and cash, hitting her when she didn't cooperate. Eventually, she managed to escape, running to Carl's house for help. But the more the police looked at the scene, and at Angel herself, the more things didn't add up. For one, the back door being left unlocked seemed a little too convenient. Then there was the matter of the valuables Angel claimed the intruder was after. Sure, the couple owned an antique store, but it wasn't exactly a treasure trove. And finally, there was Angel's demeanor. Despite her injuries, something about her story seemed off. It wasn't long before rumors about Angel started circulating. Milton's family members described her as someone who loved attention and often seemed to crave being the center of it. Then there was the store. What started as a classy antique business had, over the years, turned into more of a rundown pawn shop. Business wasn't exactly booming, and the Sawyers were rumored to be struggling financially. The police soon got their first big lead when they discovered that Milton had met a man named Dylan just hours before his death, purchasing a TV from him. Dylan had a criminal record, which raised suspicions that he might have followed Milton home with intentions of robbery. Although Dylan claimed to have been home alone at the time, there was no concrete evidence to connect him to the crime. Milton had arranged the meeting in a Hardee's parking lot to buy the TV, a decision that Angel later admitted she wasn't comfortable with. She found Dylan's behavior shady and was upset that Milton had gone through with the transaction despite her concerns. But here's the thing, Elizabeth City is small, and shady characters aren't exactly a rare find. The police even questioned Dylan, but he wasn't their guy. However, Angel did give them a little more insight into her and Milton's relationship during the investigation. Angel described their relationship as loving, but not without its challenges. According to her, they were affectionate and connected, often sharing intimate moments. Milton, though, had his struggles. He was very controlling and jealous. Angel shared that Milton's insecurities about her attractiveness made him anxious, and this had worsened over time. She always reassured him that she was committed to him, but his jealousy often got the better of him. The plot thickened when the police learned about a man named Isaac Melcher. In the fall of 2017, Angel had been in a car accident, and she needed physical therapy. She began seeing Isaac, a physical therapist at a local medical center, for sessions involving something called dry needling. For anyone unfamiliar, dry needling is a technique similar to acupuncture. It involves inserting tiny needles into muscles to relieve pain. And here's where things took a turn. Milton couldn't stand the idea of another man touching Angel, even in a professional setting. He was so jealous and insecure about Isaac that it became a significant issue in their marriage. Despite Angel's constant reassurances, Milton wasn't having it. Eventually, to ease Milton's mind, Angel stopped attending her sessions, even though it meant living in physical pain. However, Elizabeth City is a small town, and Angel and Isaac still ran into each other occasionally. This would send Milton into a fit of jealousy every time. At one point, Milton even confronted Isaac in public, yelling and causing a scene. It escalated so much that Milton's frustration over Isaac became a regular topic of conversation with his son, who later confirmed his dad's obsessive jealousy to the police. Milton even called Isaac's employer to complain about him, forcing the police to step in and calm things down. While Angel denied any inappropriate relationship with Isaac, some people close to the couple had their doubts. Milton's siblings believed Angel enjoyed provoking Milton's jealousy. They thought she got a kick out of him being possessive and suspicious, almost feeding off his insecurities. But did Isaac actually kill Milton? On the surface, it didn't seem likely. Isaac was a family man, married with children, and deeply religious, but he wasn't off the hook just yet. The police decided to investigate further. Isaac told detectives that on the night of the Milton's death, he was home the entire time, except for a brief trip to Walmart to replace his cell phone after spilling water on it. His story seemed plausible at first, but things got interesting when police decided to search his home. By then, Isaac had already left town to visit his dying mother in Oregon. In Oregon, Isaac reconnected with an old mentor named Lou, a spiritual advisor who had helped steer him away from a troubled youth. Lou later told police that Isaac had come to him for a confession during this visit. According to Lou, Isaac admitted he had fallen in love with a woman trapped in an abusive marriage. Her husband, he said, was dangerous, and Isaac felt he had no choice but to get him out of the way. Lou, understandably shocked by this confession, urged Isaac to turn himself in. When Isaac refused, Lou took matters into his own hands, contacting the Elizabeth City police and relaying everything Isaac had told him. But the police needed more than just hearsay. So they flew to Oregon to meet Lou and decided to set up a little experiment to find out the truth. They asked Lou to call Isaac and put the conversation on speaker, hoping Isaac might incriminate himself. When Lou made the call, Isaac seemed cautious. He didn't say much and later switched to a secure messaging app called Signal to avoid being overheard. But even then, Isaac's words hinted at guilt. He admitted he had reached a breaking point and turned to darker thoughts, saying he asked the devil for help.
The plan was for her to leave him, and something changed. She did not think that he would let her go, and that he would probably kill her if she tried to leave him. And I reached the place where I asked the devil to to help me.
Yeah.
Because I knew that I had to so fully turn my back on God to do this. Isaac called me the day that it happened to tell me that it had happened.
Now, when you say when it had happened,
I'm talking about the murder. The affair I did not know about at all until the night he told me about it. I've known Angel now for not quite a year, but it reached a place with Angel that it moved way, way, way beyond, just somebody that I was having sex with. If somehow I don't get arrested, there is still a desire in my heart to be with Angel. And amazingly enough, Darlene is still willing to walk through this with me. I forgive you, and I have compassion on you, and I am going to be with you as hard as it is.
You're a bigger lady than Lori is, that's for sure. Has Angel been questioned at all?
Oh, I'm sure she has, yeah. When I spoke with her, she was pretty sure that her phone was probably being bugged.
I know.
She is sticking to her story.
As the investigation progressed, detectives in Elizabeth City began to piece together crucial details. Isaac eventually confessed that Angel had known about the murder, which shifted the focus of the investigation onto her. With this new revelation, it became increasingly clear that Angel and Isaac had likely planned the crime together. The mounting pressure on both Isaac and Angel led to their arrests. Isaac was taken into custody first, followed shortly by Angel, as investigators gathered enough evidence to charge them both with the crime. As the case seemed to draw closer to a resolution, Isaac, realizing the severity of his actions, made a pivotal decision. He agreed to testify against Angel in exchange for a reduced sentence, marking a crucial turning point in the investigation. Isaac's version of events was chilling. He described how Angel had manipulated him from the very beginning, using her vulnerability to ensnare him in her web. During their physical therapy sessions, Angel had vented about her troubled marriage with Milton, portraying him as controlling and abusive. But it didn't stop there. Angel began sending Isaac intimate photos, fueling his obsession. She even bragged about relaxing in her hot tub, sending him pictures that played into the fantasy she was creating. Isaac, already captivated by her, couldn't resist. What started as an affair quickly turned into something darker.
You want to be the good guy. You want to be the person that protects. She would talk about how when they would argue, it would just be very abusive. She would talk about very personal things, such as I lay next to him, naked all night long, and he doesn't even look at me. She brought up again, I'm out in the hot tub naked, and that turned into her sending me a picture.
But things took a sinister turn when Milton began to suspect something was wrong. Isaac recalled how Angel had insisted on continuing their secret meetings, even after Milton's suspicions grew. At one point, Isaac tried to end the affair, but Angel wasn't having it. She threatened him, saying that if he left her, she would do something drastic. As Isaac's obsession deepened, the affair took a dark turn into something even more dangerous, a plan to end Milton's life. Angel told Isaac that if she didn't leave Milton, he would track her down and hurt her. She feared for her life. She told him that the only way to escape would be if Milton died from natural causes or something else. This was the point of no return, and Isaac became involved in a scheme that would ultimately lead to Milton's death.
One day, she contacted me and said, I can't leave because if I do, he'll kill me. The only way that I will ever be able to leave is if he dies of natural causes. He claimed that he would track her down and either bring her back or kill us both.
The initial plan involved poisoning Milton by mixing pills with his beer. But when that didn't work as intended, the plot changed. One night, Isaac entered the Sawyer home, armed with a firearm, though it was unloaded. The plan had always been to strangle Milton. After restraining him, Isaac ended his life and attempted to make it look like a failed robbery. In a desperate attempt to cover her tracks, Angel even injured herself, trying to create the illusion that she had been attacked by an intruder.
Put my arm around his neck and attempted to put him into a rear naked chokehold. He didn't have a pulse. So I kind of slumped over to the side, pulled my mask off.
Isaac and Angel had planned to end Milton's life to gain access to his wealth, his business, and to allow Angel to leave with her new, younger lover. the investigation eventually led to a court trial where Angel was found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Isaac, who had turned on her, was charged with second-degree murder. His sentence was 25 years in prison. What stood out most was Isaac's wife. Throughout all of this, she stood by him, seemingly unfazed by his involvement in a murder. Even when he talked about his obsession with another woman and the crime he committed, she remained supportive. She told him, "I'll walk through this with you, no matter what." Milton's death marked the end of a twisted tale of deception, obsession, and murder. Angel, a woman who had once thought she was the most beautiful person in the room, was now facing the consequences of her actions. Her narcissistic tendencies had led her down a dark path, one where her vanity and desires consumed her, ultimately destroying everything in her wake. Disclaimer: the following analysis is based on publicly available information and should not be interpreted as a professional psychological evaluation. We are not psychologists, and this discussion is intended to provide insight into the behavior of Isaac and Angel from a general perspective, not a clinical one. Angel's psychological profile reveals a disturbing combination of manipulation, narcissism, and emotional instability, which played a pivotal role in the events that unfolded. From the outset, she skillfully portrayed herself as a victim in her marriage, framing Milton as the controlling, abusive husband who left her with no choice but to seek solace in another man. This narrative not only manipulated Isaac into believing he was her savior, but also painted her as a passive participant in her own life, gaining sympathy and control over those around her. Angel's ability to weave this victim complex, while simultaneously taking actions to orchestrate a horrific crime, is indicative of a manipulative personality that thrives on external validation and the control of others. At the core of Angel's psychological makeup is a profound sense of narcissism. She exhibited a pattern of self-centered thinking and behavior, focused primarily on her own desires, regardless of the emotional toll on those around her. To her, Milton had become an obstacle, someone who stood in the way of her pursuit of happiness and fulfillment. Her disregard for his life, the pain she caused him, and the emotional control she inflicted upon Isaac further emphasized the extent of her narcissistic tendencies. To Angel, her desires outweighed the moral and emotional consequences of her actions, which ultimately led her down the dark path of criminal behavior. Angel's behavior was also marked by emotional instability, a key characteristic often associated with borderline personality disorder (BPD). She fluctuated between idealizing Isaac and demonizing Milton, creating intense, unstable relationships that fed her need for constant emotional validation. Angel's decisions, often impulsive and reckless, were driven by a deep-seated fear of abandonment and a desperate need for control in a world she perceived as chaotic. Her emotional volatility was evident in her dramatic shifts between affection and anger, particularly in how she handled her relationships. While she seemed to harbor affection for Milton at times, her desire for freedom and escape overshadowed any emotional connection she had with him. In her mind, she was trapped, and the only way out was through violence. What makes Angel's psychology even more troubling is the degree to which she seemed to lack remorse for her actions. Despite the scheming, betrayal, and ultimately the death of her husband, Angel appeared to view herself as a victim throughout the process. Even after ending her husband's life, her focus remained on her own needs, further suggesting a profound lack of empathy and an overwhelming sense of entitlement. Her willingness to deceive, manipulate, and destroy the lives of those around her in the pursuit of her own desires reflects a deeply selfish and emotionally detached personality. In sum, Angel's actions were not only a result of her toxic relationships and emotional instability, but also indicative of a larger, more ingrained psychological profile. Her mix of narcissism, emotional volatility, and manipulative tendencies created a perfect storm that led to the tragic events. By exploiting the emotions of those closest to her and abandoning any moral compass in favor of self-interest, Angel's psychology offers a chilling example of how deeply ingrained dysfunction can lead to catastrophic outcomes. On the other hand, Isaac's psychological profile reveals a troubling blend of obsession and a lack of empathy, all of which contributed to his involvement in the crime. His relationship with Angel began through emotional vulnerability. Angel portrayed herself as a victim of her marriage, fostering a sense of emotional attachment in Isaac. This seems to have exploited his potential loneliness or insecurities, and he became increasingly obsessed with her. Isaac's attachment to Angel overshadowed any moral boundaries, and he allowed himself to be drawn into her manipulative web. A critical aspect of Isaac's psychology is his lack of empathy, particularly toward Milton. Despite the gravity of taking someone's life, Isaac did not view Milton as a person deserving of respect or empathy. Instead, Milton was simply an obstacle to Isaac's desires, and his death was seen as a means to an end, removing an impediment to his relationship with Angel. This emotional detachment, coupled with his willingness to participate in the crime, reflects a profound disconnect from the value of human life. Isaac's behavior also suggests traits consistent with psychopathy or antisocial personality disorder, ASPD. His lack of guilt, disregard for the law, and readiness to engage in criminal behavior such as participating in a murder are hallmarks of these disorders. Isaac was willing to sacrifice everything for a future with Angel, showing little remorse or understanding of the consequences of his actions. This emotional coldness and the willingness to act without concern for the victim or the law point to a deeper psychological disturbance. Both Isaac and Angel were obsessed with their own desires and the power dynamics that existed within their toxic relationship. Isaac, driven by his deep emotional needs and insecurities, was obsessed with the idea of being desired and needed by someone like Angel. He was drawn to her vulnerability and the belief that he could rescue her from what she portrayed as an abusive and controlling marriage. This fixation with being her savior fed his growing obsession with her, blurring the lines between love and unhealthy fixation. His need for validation and affection from Angel led him to disregard moral boundaries, pushing him further into a dangerous relationship. Angel, on the other hand, was obsessed with control and escape. She wanted to escape the confines of her marriage to Milton, whom she portrayed as an oppressive force in her life. But her obsession went beyond just getting away from him. Angel was obsessed with the idea of starting a new chapter with Isaac, someone who seemed to offer her a sense of freedom and the attention she craved. Her psychological control over Isaac allowed her to retain control over both men, feeding her narcissistic need to be admired and desired. In Angel's mind, she was the center of everything, and she controlled the narrative of her own life through her mind games. Together, their obsession with their own needs, Isaac's with being needed, and Angel's with controlling her surroundings, created a dangerous, volatile dynamic. The obsessive need for validation and control led to a spiral of deceit and mind games, ultimately resulting in Milton's tragic death. Neither was able to see beyond their own desires, and this blindness to the consequences of their actions was the driving force behind the crime. This case stands as a haunting reminder of how obsession, manipulation, and the darker facets of human nature can lead to devastating consequences. Milton's life was senselessly taken by those he trusted, driven by twisted lies, hidden desires, and a web of deceit. The tragic events that unfolded show just how destructive unchecked obsession and emotional exploitation can be, forever altering lives in ways no one could have anticipated. And that brings us to the end of today's case. If you have any information or thoughtful insights about this case, please let us know respectfully in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on future cases. And until next time, when we explore another bone-chilling case right here on Slice of Darkness. Stay vigilant, stay safe,